Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of Poverty Point, North America's 400-year-old mystery city. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1953, an aerial photograph taken over a field in northeastern Louisiana revealed something that no one had noticed from the ground. What archaeologists had mapped as a series of disconnected natural ridges were actually 6 perfectly concentric C-shaped earthwork ridges stretching over a mile across, a geometric precision that could only have been intentional and could only have been seen from the air. The site had been sitting in plain sight since its discovery in the 1840s. No one had looked up. The people who built Poverty Point between 1700 and 1100 BC had no agriculture. They were hunter-gatherers, people who, according to every model of social complexity developed before this discovery, should not have been capable of mobilizing the thousands of workers needed to move an estimated 750,000 cubic meters of earth with digging sticks and woven baskets. Yet the scale of the construction rivals the largest earthworks anywhere in the ancient world. The site received goods from over 600 kilometers. It housed thousands of permanent residents, and it was built by people who had never planted a single field. Everything we thought we knew about what hunter-gatherers could achieve was wrong. What was Poverty Point, and why do so few people know it exists? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the broader phenomenon of lost civilizations, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. What separates a civilization from a collection of villages? Not technology alone, but organization, the capacity to coordinate thousands of people toward shared goals, to store and transmit knowledge across generations, to build institutions that outlast individuals. These are the hallmarks archaeologists look for when they define a civilization, and for most of the 20th century, the oldest examples they could identify dated to around 3500 BC in Mesopotamia and Egypt. But that benchmark has been steadily eroding. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, discovered in the 1990s and excavated since, consists of massive stone circles with elaborately carved pillars depicting animals, abstract symbols, and human figures. It dates to at least 10,000 BC, roughly 6,000 years before Stonehenge, and older than the invention of pottery or agriculture in the conventional sequence. Someone built it. Someone organized the quarrying, transport, and precise placement of limestone pillars weighing up to 20 tons. Someone knew what they were building and why. That level of coordinated effort implies a society more complex than any model of 10,000 BC predicted. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. Every few years, a new site expands the timeline further. Ancient stone structures in Indonesia have been dated to 25,000 years ago. Complex astronomical alignments have been found at sites in Africa predating Egypt by millennia. The human story is older, richer, and more turbulent than the standard narrative allows. When we look at lost civilizations, we are not chasing fantasy. We are attempting to recover chapters of a history far longer than any currently recognized textbook will tell. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding Poverty Point, North America's 400-year-old mystery city, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Poverty Point was constructed between approximately 1700 and 1100 BC in what is now West Carroll Parish, Louisiana, making it one of the oldest monumental earthwork sites in North America. The site encompasses 6 concentric C-shaped earthen ridges, the largest of which is 2 kilometers across, alongside several conical and platform mounds. The largest mound, Mound A, is 22 meters tall and 200 meters wide at its base, the second largest earthen mound in North America by volume. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen. Instruments malfunction. Researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the builders of Poverty Point were hunter-gatherers who depended on fishing, hunting, and foraging rather than agriculture for subsistence. This is the most archaeologically startling fact about the site. Virtually every comparable large earthwork complex in the ancient world was built by agricultural societies with food surpluses capable of supporting specialist labor. Poverty Point demonstrates that complex monumental construction can be achieved by mobile foragers through periodic large-scale labor mobilization, fundamentally challenging the agriculture equals civilization equation. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Poverty Point functioned as the hub of a remarkable long-distance exchange network spanning over 600 kilometers. Exotic materials recovered from the site include copper from the Great Lakes region of Michigan and Ontario, galena from Missouri and Iowa, soapstone from the Appalachian Mountains of Alabama, and chert from as far away as Indiana. These materials were not passively acquired, but actively sought through maintained trade relationships across most of eastern North America. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the site's permanent population is estimated at between 3,000 and 5,000 people, with possibly many more arriving seasonally for ceremonies, trade, or communal labor events. Archaeologists John Gibson of the University of Louisiana and others have debated whether Poverty Point was a permanently occupied settlement or a seasonally aggregated ceremonial center. The density of cooking features, middens, and residential debris across the ridge system strongly suggests year-round habitation by a substantial core population. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of a distinctive category of artifact at Poverty Point is the so-called Poverty Point object, a hand-molded ball or biconical piece of baked clay recovered by the millions from the site. These objects were used as cooking stones, heated in fires and placed in earth ovens to retain heat. Their ubiquity indicates the site's residents were cooking large quantities of food probably communal feasts, on a regular basis, and their absence elsewhere in comparable numbers suggests that Poverty Point may have functioned partly as a place of large-scale ceremonial food sharing. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Astronomical alignments at Poverty Point were confirmed by archaeoastronomer Anthony Aveny of Colgate University and others, who demonstrated that the orientation of the ridges and mounds aligns with the summer solstice sunrise, the equinox sunset, and other astronomically significant directions. Mound B, a bird-shaped mound visible only from the air, points precisely toward the winter solstice sunset. These alignments confirm that the site's geometry was deliberately planned using sophisticated astronomical knowledge, requiring careful observation and long-term record-keeping. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Poverty Point, North America's 400-year-old mystery city. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that archaeologist John Gibson of the University of Louisiana argued that Poverty Point was a permanently occupied settlement of sophisticated hunter-gatherers whose social complexity arose from the richness of their riverine environment rather than from agriculture. On this model, the lower Mississippi Valley's extraordinary productivity in fish, game, and wild plants made intensive permanent settlement possible without farming. The main objection is that even rich environments typically cannot support the dense permanent populations associated with monumental construction without some degree of food storage or cultivation. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that a competing model proposed by Kenneth Sassaman of the University of Florida treats Poverty Point as a seasonally aggregated ceremonial center rather than a permanent city, a place where dispersed hunter-gatherer populate. Ions converged periodically for exchange, ceremony, and communal labor. Between gatherings, the ridges may have been largely empty. The objection is the density of permanent cooking features and domestic debris across the ridges, which is difficult to explain if occupation was strictly seasonal. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that an archaeoastronomical interpretation supported by Anthony Aveny holds that Poverty Point was primarily a monumental astronomical calendar, a landscape-scale instrument for tracking solstices and equinoxes that served as the organizatio. Now Center for a regional ritual calendar, Construction of the earthworks would have been the communal act that constituted the community's identity. The objection is that astronomical alignments, while real, do not distinguish a deliberate observatory from coincidental orientation in a site planned for other purposes. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Poverty Point, North America's 400-year-old mystery city, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes exotic raw materials recovered from Poverty Point in systematic excavations, include copper nuggets traced by lead isotope analysis to the Great Lakes region, galena tr. Ace to the upper Mississippi Valley, soapstone matched to geological sources in the Alabama Appalachians, and high-quality flint matched to outcrops in Indiana and Tennessee. The presence of materials from 15 or more distinct geological source regions at a single site demonstrates an active, wide-ranging trade network, unlike anything else known from hunter-gatherer societies in North America at this period. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented magnetized iron ore pebbles, magnetite and hematite, recovered from Poverty Point, are the oldest magnetic compass materials found in the Americas, leading some researchers to suggest the Poverty Point people used them for directional orientation during construction. More conservatively, the pebbles were almost certainly valued as sacred or prestigious objects. Their presence confirms trade connections to specific ore sources in Missouri and Arkansas and demonstrates that the Poverty Point exchange network targeted specific materials for non-utilitarian purposes. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed solstice and equinox alignments at Poverty Point, documented by archaeoastronomer Anthony Aveni using precision survey data, show that the orientation of the 6 concentric ridges deviates from true east-west by the precise angle corresponding to the summer solstice sunrise azimuth at the site's latitude. Mound B, shaped like a flying bird and visible only from the air, points toward winter solstice sunset. These alignments are statistically unlikely to be coincidental and imply that the entire site was laid out using observed astronomical reference points. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Poverty Point, North America's 400-year-old mystery city. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Poverty Point was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2014, one of only 24 in the United States, in recognition of its significance as evidence of complex social organization by non-agricultural people. Ongoing LIDAR mapping by the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development has revealed additional earthwork features beyond the known site boundaries, suggesting the occupied area was larger than previously mapped. The site fundamentally challenges the assumption, embedded in many history curricula, that agriculture is a prerequisite for social complexity, monument building, and long-distance trade. People of Poverty Point built one of the ancient world's great earthwork complexes while living entirely from the land and water around them, without planting a single seed. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Poverty Point, North America's 400-year-old mystery city, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Poverty Point ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle, it is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.